Salutations, my friends. Hello, my name is Maria. This is Love Party Paint. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about how to find your art style. And I will be talking a little bit about my journey and then giving you a few tips on how you can find your art style. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, like this video, and share it with all your friends. Meet me back at the canvas. And meet me back at the canvas. Meet me back at the canvas. Meet me back at the canvas.
Meet me back at the canvas. Meet me back at the canvas.
Meet me back at the canvas.
I gotta jump in and take my shot.
Well, hey there. Thanks for meeting me back at the canvas. I'm gonna take you through a little journey. I started my art career, how I started getting into art, and how I developed my style or my aesthetic through the process of discovering art and painting and everything art related. So about 5 years ago, I've told this story a few times on my channel, but maybe some new subscribers would like to hear my story as well. I haven't really told it for probably about a year. So about 5 years ago, I discovered I'm not sure if I was really talented at first. I thought I was magnificent, but what ended up happening is I was a stay-at-home mom, or I was kind of just working part-time on the weekends, and my son was in preschool, my daughter was in elementary school, and I needed something other than cleaning and doing laundry and all of those motherly and fatherly duties to fill my time. I was just super bored. And I've always been interested in art. My mother was an artist. A lot of people in my family are artists. And I had never really discovered art, never really put any effort into it. And so what I did is one day, I was super bored. I was reading articles online, or I was on Facebook or something like that. And I came across this article that said something about the human hand being the most difficult thing to draw. And if you can master that, then you can probably draw just about anything. And I thought, well, that's not interesting. Maybe I will try to draw a hand. So that's exactly what I did. I'll insert a picture of the sketch I did. So I thought it turned out rather well myself. I was impressed with myself. I was like, oh, this actually looks pretty good. I used a number 2 pencil, regular paper. I think it was actually like printer paper or something of that nature, something like really thin, not good quality, didn't know how to blend, didn't know any techniques. I literally just looked at a picture of a hand and sketched it. And it just came as a surprise that I felt like, well, if I nurture this a little bit, maybe I have something here. Maybe I have a hidden talent I didn't know about. So then I did another sketch. I think I did a self-portrait, which turned out super bad, but I didn't care. And then I did a couple more portraits, which is super ambitious, of my kids, and then I just did like a whole bunch of portraits. I'll try to put some of them in here. Portraits and just random stuff I sketched. I did like a butterfly, and I did a landscape. Anyway, I just did a whole bunch of different sketches, and then I started really going in depth and researching like different types of pencils to use, different blending techniques, and I just went all in. And I really probably focused on that for about 6 months or so, and I only did sketching. Then I discovered colored pencils, and then I started doing a lot of work with colored pencils. I'll put a few things that I did with the colored pencils. And then once I was over that phase, I really started becoming bored with that process, so I tried watercolors. This is where I struggled. I still struggle with watercolors. They're not necessarily what I gravitate towards because they're very difficult for me, and I keep trying and keep working that, and I spent a significant amount of time working with just strictly watercolors and watercolor pencils. I'll put some of my work, not my best moment, but after becoming super frustrated with those, I thought, let me research what would be easier to paint with than watercolors. And that's when I discovered the wonderful world of acrylic paint. And I found YouTube art tutorials on just about anything in the world you could want to paint. So I filled a lot of my days with learning different painting techniques, following art tutorials on YouTube strictly. That's exactly how I learned how to paint, is from following YouTube art tutorials. And then through that, I got ambitious enough to start doing my own paintings and start learning techniques just by reading online or reading books, just going to the library and checking out whatever books. And I spent just probably the past 5 years really going in depth on learning about acrylic painting. And yeah, I haven't been doing it that long. I didn't discover any of this until I was like well into my 30s, probably about 32 or so. And now here I am 5 years later, and I actually have a career as an artist. I sell my art, I do commission art pieces and a few other things, and obviously I have a YouTube channel teaching about acrylic painting. And so that's my journey and how I kind of developed my style and how I learned how to paint. And through the video, as I share my tips, I'll talk about my own journey a little bit more in depth, but I just wanted kind of an overview of, you know, my own art. So my first tip is working with as many different mediums as you possibly can. Like for my own journey, I did sketching with graphite and charcoal, and then I did colored pencils, and I did watercolors. I did a bunch of stuff in between as well, but none of it really stuck. And the one thing that really stuck was acrylic painting. So whatever you're working with, even if it feels good, keep trying new things, because there might be something even better for you on the other side. Like I never stopped learning how to work with different mediums, or I mix them all together. Yeah, mainly like the stuff that I'm gonna sell, I'll obviously stick to what I know, but how can I keep growing and learning if I don't try new things? So keep working with different mediums. My next suggestion to finding your art style is to keep studying. Study, 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 and then study some more. And when I say this, I don't mean just painting techniques. Yes, studying painting techniques is definitely gonna help you find your style. The better you can get technically, the better you are going to do many different styles, the more you can try, and then you'll find the one that you love the most and that maybe you're the best at. And also, along with that, is to go on YouTube and follow other people's tutorials. This is going to teach you different techniques, different styles, or just watch videos on different types of styles like impressionism or realism or abstract. Watch as many different videos as you possibly can. Gain as much knowledge as you possibly can. And it doesn't matter how long a person's been painting, you can learn from anybody, and you can learn in any way. And also to study famous artists from the past and recreate their work. This will help you find what you love in the style that you love. Like for an example, I do a lot of recreating like Van Gogh type Starry Night, or just in general. I've done that a lot using his techniques that I've learned from studying his paintings, because I absolutely love them. I love the contrast, I love the flow, I love everything about those. And Frida, I've studied her artwork a lot and tried to recreate some of her techniques in my own art, and this has helped me develop my style by recreating their paintings in a sense. You don't have to do it exactly, like you don't have to actually like go and paint the Mona Lisa, but just take some things from the paintings that you love and incorporate them into your own painting that you're doing. Or you could just literally completely try to copy their painting, and obviously you can't sell it or anything, it's just for you to practice. But this will help you find your own style by practicing the things that you have learned. And they say practice makes perfect. And studying, I believe also, studying a bunch of different art techniques, pretty much immerse yourself into the art world or whatever type of medium you're learning at the time, like you are actually in school learning, and put that discipline towards that. Read as much as you can, watch as much as you can, and if you can pay for some classes, do that. I wasn't able to afford that when I was younger. Obviously, I wasn't working full time and I had kids, so I used the internet to my advantage to learn those things. After you have studied all of those different artists and all of those different techniques and all of those different styles of art, this for me is when you start trying to apply those to your own art and play with everything you've learned. Play with impressionism or realism or hyperrealism, whatever you want to do, to kind of figure out which one of those things that you love the most and which one of those things that you are maybe the best at and really feel the most passion for. This is definitely going to narrow down what your style is. Okay, so the next thing or tip that I think is super important is to not be stuck in an art box or an art bubble. Have the freedom of expression. And what I mean by that is, just because somebody says that you should do things a certain way, well, this is what art is breaking down those walls. There's absolutely no reason you can't throw Impressionism in with a realistic painting. Use all different mediums in one type of painting. You know, put some ink in there, put some acrylic, mix the oils with the acrylics, use your watercolors, use your colored pencils. Whatever you feel you want to do and the type of art you want to make it. You know, I'm sure a lot of people told Picasso when he was making those crazy faces that they looked like crap. He probably didn't care, and that's how he wanted to express himself. Or maybe people thought that Frida's paintings were way too dark and way too gruesome, even in some of them, and the message was way too big. Well, this is how you're going to find your style, is through speaking through your heart and speaking through what you find aesthetically pleasing. You're not going to find your style by just doing what everybody else says to do or what you think people are going to like. You have to like what you're doing first. This is really going to show the world through your art how passionate you are about the art that you're making. And that is the key to finding your perfect style. So another way you can really develop your style and or find your style is by trying new things. And when I say this, I don't mean just completely doing a 180. I mean, let your style evolve. If we never stop growing and trying new things, we're never going to evolve into a better artist and really develop our signature style. So just allow yourself to change. Just because you're a portrait artist right now doesn't mean eventually maybe you're going to be a landscape artist in the future. Maybe you're going to be completely different and be an abstract painter. You don't know unless you let yourself evolve and change. I mean, speaking of Picasso, look at how many different phases he went through. Just allow yourself to change and grow and try new things, because this is where you really can find the magic and keep growing and becoming better. And if you find inspiration in something, go with that. If you were, if you have a career as a seascape artist, well, you don't have to do that forever. If you all of a sudden find inspiration, and let's just say you were looking through a magazine and you saw somebody really beautiful and you thought, oh my gosh, I really want to paint this person. This happens to me all the time. And all of a sudden, just whatever I was working on, I find inspiration in something new, and then I start, doing portraits or whatever, or I find inspiration in landscapes. You don't have to stick with the same thing. I mean, yes, I know that helps you in the long run for people to recognize your art, but ultimately you have to be happy with what you're doing and where you're at. So I think it's really important to allow yourself to be able to paint different things and change your style so you can evolve. So going along with that same thing of stepping outside of your comfort zone, I think this is super essential to growing as an artist and finding your style, is actually making yourself uncomfortable. If you think that you can't paint something or do something, do it anyway. Because the things that make you most uncomfortable in life are usually the things that you become the best at. I know that sounds crazy, but it's actually true. When I started art, the whole idea of even sketching something that looked so realistic was just mind-boggling. I thought there's no way in HE double hockey sticks that I'm going to be able to accomplish this. Sorry, mom talk. But it's true. If you make yourself uncomfortable, and even if the painting turns out bad, try it again and keep going. And this is really going to help you grow. I mean, maybe this video should have been how to grow as an artist. Because now that I think about it, all of these things are going to help you find your style, but inevitably all of these things are also going to help you grow as an artist. And I find it's so important to just really break out of whatever box or whatever style that people told you that you should be doing, and just do something completely different. Just do it. Who cares what people say? Even if it looks terrible, you don't have to show anybody. Just keep at it. And this is where you're going to grow the most, is when you challenge yourself. Because if you don't challenge yourself, you're just going to stay at the same level, right? So make yourself uncomfortable. My next thing that I want to talk about, I kind of touched on, is allowing yourself to fail. Failure is part of the process to finding your style and becoming a better artist. make bad paintings. It's okay if they suck and they look terrible. And for, you know, it's easy to paint over it and to do something else and to start over. You don't have to necessarily keep it and stare at it every day, but without failure, you cannot get better. If you don't make mistakes, I mean, even in life, if you don't make mistakes, you know, you've heard your parents say this, if you don't make mistakes, how are you going to become a good person? How are you going to know what not to do if you don't do it? I mean, that sounds really bad, but it's true, you know? If you don't make mistakes, you're not going to grow. It's absolutely true. And old Bob Ross says, oh, there's no mistakes, just happy accidents. And through failing, you know, you can find out what you really don't like, find out what maybe you're pretty bad at, and maybe you're not necessarily going to grow, which I don't necessarily believe, but if you're stuck in that mindset, then you're stuck in that mindset. But only through that process of failure are you really going to find what you're truly good at and be able to grow and be able to become better. So let yourself make mistakes. Next thing I want to mention, it almost goes along with what I was just saying, but in the same sense, it's completely different. And this might be mind-boggling to most people, what I'm about to say, is paint stuff that you don't like. This sounds crazy, yes, I know. But paint stuff that you're not naturally drawn to, or paint styles, or even mediums, or whatever it is that may not actually interest you that much. Things that you may not really like aesthetically or just in general. I believe it was George O'Keeffe. She said something along the lines, somebody asked her why she painted flowers, and she, I mean, don't quote me on this, I'll try to find the actual quote and put it in there. And she said something along the lines of that, while she doesn't really like flowers that much in particular, the reason she paints them is because they don't move, meaning she would rather probably paint people, but they move. And the reason she's painting flowers, even though she doesn't really like them that much, is because they are still. So obviously she found her style through painting something that she wasn't necessarily that crazy about. See what I'm getting at? My own personal experience with this is painting abstract art. I'm honestly not that crazy about abstract art. A lot of it I look at and I go, why? You know what I mean? Why are people buying this for $20,000 when there's a naturescape artist who spent, you know, 40 hours plus working on this painting, maybe even months working on this painting, and they get $60 for it. You know what I mean? But that's completely not accurate. I mean, art is your freedom of expression, and whoever buys it sees whatever they see in it. I mean, obviously I didn't know that as a young artist. And now that I am an old seasoned artist, which is also not accurate, probably still a budding artist. But how I apply that is by doing it. Is by painting abstract paintings and finding what I loved about that process and incorporating it into my own art and how I paint now and into my own style. It's finding the freedom and the flow in abstract painting that you don't necessarily find if you're a realistic painter, or, you know, whatever style you do, if you do naturescapes or if you do portraits, you don't necessarily find that flow or that freedom. And so what I've been doing now is implementing more abstract things, or the feeling of freedom into what I'm making, using a different type of color palette, allowing my strokes to be more loose and more free and not being so uptight through the process. And really, through abstract painting, I really learned how to let go and learn how to get into that meditative mode while you're painting, that sort of flow that you go through, and really found so much more joy in the process of painting. And that has really come out in the last, I would say, just a few months, maybe the last 6 months, and I feel like has made me a better artist because I've learned to love it more. I've learned to fall in love with it more and let some of that pressure go, especially when I'm working on pieces for other people that have paid for them. I've learned to enjoy it a lot more and just not be so hard on myself. So you can really grow and find your style through things that you wouldn't necessarily do. Let's like take, maybe you love bold color. This is another thing that I've learned, that you don't always need to make an amazing painting. This is another thing. I don't necessarily like looking at black and white paintings. I think those are pretty freaking boring. They're not that exciting. But through that process and doing something that I didn't necessarily think I was gonna like, turned into love. Now I almost always do most of my portrait work in black and white because it's so much easier to pick up the correct shade when looking at a grayscale than when looking in color and doing, you know, mixing different skin tones and mixing different shades in that way. So that has really helped me grow and identify my personal style. So paint something you don't like is what I'm saying. Another way you can really develop your own style is finding inspiration. I know this is kind of a blanket statement, and I'm sure all of the other videos where people, you know, make this probably say the same thing. Well, it's true. If you can find inspiration in different things, this is going to help you find what you find aesthetically pleasing or appealing. So this is how you're gonna do it. Just maybe go on Pinterest and start looking at naturescapes, or maybe you find inspiration in fashion. Maybe you find inspiration in, you know, any type of photography. Maybe it's ocean or just nature photos in general. Maybe you find inspiration at looking at wildlife. Whatever it is that you find and you're moved by and captivated by when you're looking at it, paint that. Use that emotion and that feeling and what invokes those intense emotions and put it onto your canvas or your paper or whatever you're making. This is really going to help you develop a signature style. And not only that, not just looking at photography, go out into the world. Go hiking, go to a fashion show, go look at clothes in a mall, whatever it is that will get all of your senses awake. And like I said, evoke that emotion and try to recreate that when you're making your art. And another great thing that I love to do is follow other artists on my social media, on Facebook or on Instagram, mainly on Instagram because that's usually where people put most of their work or have kind of almost like a blog style thing. I follow so many artists. If you have an Instagram, you're an artist, leave it down below. I'll follow you. Maybe I'll find inspiration in your work. And you don't have to completely copy them. If you find something you really love about their work, maybe you can implement that into your own work. I'll share a little bit about how this happened to me. I follow somebody, her name is Woodsense, I believe that. She's like, Woodsense? I think that's her name, or her Instagram handle is Woodsense, something like that. I'll try to link it. I don't know if you can link people's Instagrams, but I was so captivated by this young lady's work. I think I was working on making my portraits better, or maybe I was doing naturescapes, but it literally captivated me so much. I had a moment where I just fell in love with her kind of, not that she does a lot of silhouette, but almost like a little silhouette, a lot of kind of like galaxy-esque kind of night. She uses really like normally kind of darker jewel tones, and where I was going through a phase where I was using like lighter colors, and then I did like a 180 and did like a whole series of these paintings, and mine were mainly silhouette paintings, and I obviously didn't want to completely copy her, so obviously I just incorporated into what I wanted to paint and into my own style. And really through that process, during that time, I had a very signature style that was very much heavily influenced by the paintings that she very heavily influenced by her work. She's very talented. Not so much anymore. I don't necessarily make paintings like that anymore, but it was a phase that I went through, and I mean, there are certain things that I still use. Like I use a lot bolder of colors than I ever would have before when I do use color. Brighter colors, bolder colors, and more layered. And I used to be really into, I still am really into blending, but some of her stuff is really, not blocky, but bold. I mean, I don't know how to explain it so much, but it really, me going through that period really had a really large impact on how I paint now, even in when I do portraits. The color choices that I make and how I layer up my colors is pretty bold and pretty loud, and maybe not everybody loves that, but I do. That's what's important. So the next thing I want to touch on is really similar to finding inspiration, but it's painting what you love. And what I mean by this is whatever is closest to your heart And whatever you love doing, or whoever you love, or whatever you love, paint that. Paint what you love. Paint what is closest to your heart. Let's say you love people. Well, maybe your heart is going to speak the most and you're going to be the best at portraits. Maybe you love being out in nature, going hiking. Well, maybe you should be painting the forest. Maybe you love the mountains. Maybe that's where you find, it's your happy place. Maybe you love being in the mountains. Well, maybe you should be painting the mountains, because that's where your passion is going to drive the most creativity, and it's going to speak through your art. And this is going to help you develop that style, is painting what you love. It can be as close as your home, or looking in the mirror. Look at Frida. Maybe she really, really loved herself, or she was a tortured soul. But I think what she said is the reason she did so many self-portraits is because that's what she knew the best, was herself. So I think that kind of is very similar to what I'm saying, is paint what you love, paint what you know the best, paint where your happy place is. And for me, well, I do love people, but I really love music, so I love painting musicians. I really love makeup, and I love watching makeup tutorials, so I painted some makeup gurus. I mean, just paint what you love. I love nature, so of course I'm gonna do a lot of naturescapes. And if you love bold color, well, use bold color. If you love muted tones, paint with muted tones. Just paint what you love, and it's gonna speak through your art, and you're gonna definitely find your style. So what I'm about to say might surprise most of you, because this entire video is about finding your style. But lastly, I just wanna say that it's okay to not have a style. Maybe no style is your style. If you look at my Instagram page and look and sift through all my art, maybe it all isn't cohesive. Maybe I'm not painting all of the same thing. Maybe I'm not painting all oceanscapes. Maybe I'm not doing all portraits, but that's okay, because having no style is part of my style. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. And when you have this freedom to paint as many different things as you want, in any color palette you choose, in any style you choose to paint in, and having that freedom, having the freedom of expression, and not putting yourself in a box and not putting a stamp on it, well, maybe through that process, you will actually develop your style, and that will develop your style for you. What I'm saying is, you don't have to just paint all portraits. You don't have to just paint all flowers. You don't have to just paint all abstract. Just let your heart speak. Just try as many different things as you can. And like I said, through that, you will find your style. There's absolutely no reason you have to be stuck in some art box. Art is about expression and finding yourself. And like I said, letting your soul speak. And that is the most important thing, is expression. That's what art is. It's your soul speaking through you, through a pen, through paint, whatever it is. It's so important to realize that just because maybe you look at all of your body of work and it doesn't necessarily all resemble each other, well, that just shows how hard you work and how much you learn and how many different things you're willing to try. And that freedom is really ultimately going to help you develop that style and experimenting, and it shows that you're never going to stop learning. And you will become the greatest artist that you can possibly be by trying so many different things. And sure, the further I get into painting, the more and more I do develop a style and techniques that I use over and over, because I've tested them. I know they work. I know they work for me. Certain brushes I use, certain strokes I use, certain color palette I use. And through that, that's how you have your signature style. Those are the key elements to having your style. It's not necessarily what you're painting and everything has to be the same color and everything has to be cohesive. That's just a bunch of crap that people in fancy art galleries tell you, or fancy art schools tell you. You don't have to do that. I'm not putting anybody down who does, study classical art or is a classically trained artist. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to say that without trying a bunch of different things, you're not going to find your style. And sure, if you look at somebody's Instagram page, yeah, it's going to be super aesthetically pleasing to people to look and sift through that if it's a bunch of nighttime, starry, galaxy you know, paintings, or everything's in blue tone, or whatever it is. Everything's cohesive. I mean, honestly, it looks like I might be a bit schizophrenic when you go through all of my stuff. I mean, that's not funny, but it's true. It's like my mind's all over the place, but I just have so much passion for so many things, and trying so many things really helps me narrow it down and find the key elements to what makes my art style. The last thing I want to say about finding your personal style is what I've kind of noticed that I've been mentioning throughout this entire video is the passion and the heart that speaks through the painting. All of that emotion, all of that love, all of that passion, everything that drives you to be an artist, when it speaks through your art, that's what people will recognize and find cohesive in your art, is your passion, your love, and that's what makes good art. That's what makes people notice your art and what your style is. So don't worry if you're not always painting the same exact thing over and over, using the same color palettes, using the same techniques, you know, being a realistic artist or doing abstract, whatever it is you're doing, you don't have to be stuck in that box. It is the passion and the love you put into it that people will notice. Even if they don't notice right now, eventually they will notice it. And I'm assuming the reason you're watching this video, if you are, is because you are looking for people to notice your art. They're only going to notice it if you paint what you love and your passion shines through that art. So that's my final message. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, give it a share, do what you can to help my channel out. I have a lot of passion for making these videos, and I've had a lot of struggle with getting my subscribers up and even getting views on my videos. So anything anybody can do to help me out, to help me share my knowledge and share my passion for art with the world, I would be super grateful. It's something that I'm really passionate about, that I keep doing regardless of my subscriber count and my friends here on YouTube, regardless if I don't have 1 million friends or even 1,000. I keep making these videos because I'm very passionate about teaching, I'm very passionate about art, and I'm very passionate about making friends and connecting with people. So anything that you guys can do to help me out, I would be forever grateful. Even just taking the time to watch my videos all the way through. You don't have to share them, you don't even have to subscribe. It just will help my channel do better and help the algorithm pick up my videos, because this is something that I want to do for pretty much the rest of my life. I am super passionate about it, and I always go back and forth with the thought of, am I wasting my time making these videos? Should I quit YouTube? And I keep going back and forth with that. And every Sunday, we pray. I sit down and I make these because I'm very passionate about it. I want to make a difference. I want to help people, and I don't want to give up. Just like art, you keep trying until you find your style, and you keep working it till something clicks and something fits. And that's what I'm going to keep doing with my channel. And so I hope you guys can help me out, and I love you, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Goodbye.